Welcome to Committee of the Whole for this Tuesday, May the 20th. My name is Deputy Mayor Penrod, and it's my pleasure to walk us through the meeting this evening. So we'll call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. Welcome to those attending in person and to those joining us online. We begin our meeting, as is our practice, with our land acknowledgement. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people and the land. With that, we come to adoption of the agenda. Do I have a councillor ready to move the agenda today? As presented, John. So it's mentioned there in the motion. The 7.2 from the closed session has been struck from the agenda. Councillor Natellenbos. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move that the May 20, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be adopted with the following amendment, removing item 7.2 CAO priorities.
Thank you. Could we open the voting, please? Thank you. That passes unanimously. So just a note that Councillors Van Newkirk and Munkoff-Swain are not with us today. We are 5 motions need to pass with a majority of 3 votes. That brings us to open forum. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone registered for open forum this evening?
Sorry, no, we don't have anyone registered for open forum. However, we do have to adopt the minutes from the last Committee of the Whole meeting.
Thank you. So we'll double back there. 3.1, adoption of the minutes. Do I have a councillor minutes? Mayor Daniluk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that the April 15, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes be adopted as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or commentary around that? I'm guessing no. We'll open the voting. Thank you. That carries 5-0. And that brings us to item 5, presentations, delegations, and item Boulos presenting on behalf of administration. Ms. Boulos, you are on. Can you just request there? Thank you. Seat 7. Take it away.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Sarah Boulos. I'm a Planner 2 with the City of Beaumont and part of the Planning and Development Department. And our department does an annual monitoring report of how our zoning blueprint, which is our land use bylaw, were identified when the bylaw was developed back in 2019. Yeah. Perfect, thank you. So the land use bylaw is really an implementation tool that is used to actualize the concepts and the policies that are found in our higher order plans, such as municipal development plan, the affordable housing strategy, various area structure plans, etc. These higher order plans, they give us an understanding of what the city wants to achieve and a more broad concept of how we want the city to look and function. The land use bylaw, so our zoning blueprint, then takes these concepts and goals and translates them to subdivision and development regulations that we then use to make decisions on things like subdivision applications and development permits. So the key goals that were identified through the development of our zoning blueprint are shown on the screen here. So three key goals were easy to understand, certainty in decision-making and the application process, and flexibility on site and neighborhood design, so looking at our form-based code, so how things look on the ground. Now, some ways that these goals are monitored are through development permit and subdivision processing times, through the amount of variances granted to the land use bylaw, and the diversity of the residential development types that we see. Now, more metrics on how this is monitored is provided to you in the agenda package through a graphic representation of the data. For today, there are a few that we wanted to focus on. So the land use bylaw has been in effect since April 2019, and in that time, as you can see here, there has been some measurable increase in the volume of applications. So starting from 2020 to 2024, there's been a 38% increase in permit applications. This can point to two things. The first being that the land use bylaw has been able to accommodate and respond to our rapidly growing community, and that provides for a diversity in housing forms as well as non-residential opportunities such as commercial developments and multifamily sites. The second thing is that rapid growth is another factor that influences the metrics of the monitoring program, and particularly looking at processing times. So the average days for a decision for various permits are shown on the screen.
The next slide.
Or will be shown on the screen. Here, thank you. One of them that I would like to note specifically is looking at subdivisions. So compared to 2023 to 2024, we experienced a 250% increase in the volume of subdivision applications. So this resulted in timelines being 95 days to make a decision for a subdivision in 2024. In 2023, the processing time for subdivisions was 90 days. So although these timelines don't necessarily align with the goals in our zoning blueprint, subdivisions in particular show that a significant increase in applications is not translated into an equally significant increase in processing times, but a little increase in processing times. The complexity of applications also does warrant careful consideration and the involvement of multiple groups contributing to the processing timelines. Now, the city has been able to adapt to a degree to the volumes being experienced. But as you can see on the screen here, the volumes are a little bit higher than noted in our zoning blueprint. One of our other goals of providing flexibility in neighborhood design is strongly shown through the diversity in the housing types that we've seen in the past year. So we have shifted. So in 2023, we saw 53% of the homes being developed as single-family homes with front-attached garages. And historically, this has been a dominant form of housing in Beaumont. And in 2024, that went down to 49%. Another thing to note is that our semi-attached and multi-attached housing actually increased in terms of the volume, so the 9 and 11% that you see there on the screen. So looking at why we review these numbers and why it's important to look at them for the land use bylaw. Regularly reviewing the land use bylaw allows us to see how it's working as that crucial tool to developing the community, but it also allows us to see what needs to change. So the land use bylaw was amended in early 2025 to increase residential parking requirements as well as to decrease additional dwelling unit allowances. And this was to better reflect what council was hearing from the community. This is definitely a great start to refining the land use bylaw. However, these amendments highlight the need to review the land use bylaw more comprehensively. And the reason for this is to help reduce the risk of unintended consequences and ensure that the regulations that we're looking at amending are working together. It's also to ensure that the land use bylaw as a whole reflects the priorities in Beaumont and that we're not just looking at individual pieces of the land use bylaw. On that note, I will hand it off to Kendra to speak more about the continuous improvement piece.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. So, as mentioned,
the department is committed to continuous improvement. One of those things being that over this next little while, we need to be looking at our planning framework. So with the dissolution of the EMRB, it's very timely to be getting this review to determine how Beaumont wants to grow in the future, what does it look like in terms of density targets and those sorts of things now that the board and the growth plan no longer exists. The reasons behind the growth plan are really key principles, I think, for growth, for sustainable growth, compact development, efficient servicing, having land uses close to where people live, work, and those sorts of things. And we'll continue to have those. That's what our MDP is based on, is having that complete community. But we want to kind of build on that and work with the community to understand what their vision is. It's been some time since we were talking with the community about how they want to grow. We need to check in to make sure that that is still valid, that our assumptions that we were working with from 2015 are how the community wants to grow. We'll also be building off of work with the comprehensive growth plan that the municipality is undertaking as well. So we would, in the future, for the 2026 budget, we'll be including an ask for the municipal development plan review and update, the land use bylaw, and both of those will have comprehensive public engagement components. We spent 18 months doing the engagement for our zoning blueprint on, I guess, the previous 18 months of looking at our municipal development plan. So we really spent a number of years working with the community on envisioning the future, I guess, of the community, and then translating that into the implementation, which you see through the land use bylaw. One of those other things that we need to do is looking at e-permitting. Electronic permitting is something that the municipality, we've been running off of Excel spreadsheets. We've been working through this for the past period of time, but one of those things will be that we will require some budget funding for that as well if we're going to continue to move towards electronic permitting. So you can expect to see that in a future budget request as well. And then finally, with Loretta Foley, who's here with us tonight. She's been helping us to implement the service review. She's a strategic advisor with the department. We've been continuing to monitor and analyze our staffing levels, which are required to adequately support planning and development functions in the city and really improve that end-to-end development process. As you can see here, our timelines are lagging. We're aware of that. But I think that this department and the service area in particular has about 6 FTEs and about 3 on average at a given time lately. So I think they're making the best out of what we can do. But we definitely know that there are different levers we can pull to take what worked for us, 5 years ago and scale that up and to change that in a way that meets the community where they're at and where the expectations are. So that is work that we are going to continue to do. And we are looking at making sure that our costs are recovered through our fees in an appropriate manner. So we will continue that work. And you'll see us back here also next week for another land use bylaw amendment. While Sarah did talk about how we don't want to do issue-specific amendments, sometimes they're required. And one of those will be coming forward regarding education uses and childcare in particular next week for us to just start to have that conversation about it before we move any forward with that. So we're open for questions if you have any.
Thank you both to Ms. Boulos and to Ms. Raymond for your remarks and for the excellent presentation. Questions? Councillor Natellenbos.
Perfect. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just have a couple questions. I guess first one relates to the residential improvements. I think the timing was impeccable, but I was advised that it would take up to 30 days for initial review as a result of the backlog. And this is for a building permit, as well as potentially an additional 25 days for an actual approval. So it doesn't seem to align with the residential improvement 28 days. Just wondering if that's a one-off or potentially I was provided incorrect information, hoping someone could provide some clarity.
Defer
Sorry.
that one to Kendra.
Thank you. Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. Thank you through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Natellenboss. Right now, we are having quite a backlog of applications. They're received through an email structure in our Outlook inbox, and all of our applications come in through that way. So development permits, building permits, and we're short-staffed on that end. And so we're having a backlog of applications that are actually just sitting in the inbox before we're able to get to them, which is creating some of those delays. On average here, I can have Sarah talk about this a little bit more, Yasmin, but that's on a yearly basis is what we're looking at. So when we're looking at right now, we're in peak development season. So that is taking a little bit before they're able to intake the permit, and then it moves through to our safety code services, who are then reviewing it. And they're aiming right now, I think they're within, we are prioritizing, I believe, homeowner permits at this point right now. We're striving to when that presents itself with backlogs. So I think that they were about, last I heard, about 10 days out actually on basements, but that's where we're currently at once they get through the processing. But it's a couple of weeks right now to actually be able to submit an application at this point.
Perfect, thank you. And I guess just for clarity, so residential improvement, obviously there's quite a few permits that need to be put forward. So for example, potentially even development depending on use, but we'll have a building permit, so that could take up to, I guess, the 55 days that I was told potentially. I cannot submit my electrical permit or my plumbing permit or gas permit until the initial building permit is approved. So in addition to that 55 days, we're looking at individual approvals on each permit. Are you able to give right now a rough time frame how long it would take for a current homeowner in Beaumont to complete all of those permits and the time length it would take?
For the plumbing and gas permits, those ones are issued immediately. Can you just refresh my memory what the other permits were?
So potentially development, depending on the use of obviously the building permit, and then potentially gas, depending on what's required.
Yeah, so with those, one of the items that we were trying this year is prioritizing homeowner-specific permits. So while that's an auto email that's generated at the bottom of all of our emails, some of those take longer than other development permit types for us to get through those. On average, I think right now we're still probably 3-4 weeks. I'd actually have to double check those numbers to see where we're currently at. We are just onboarding a new staff member and in our intake side, so we bit of delay there at this point.
Perfect, thank you. I guess, yeah, if you wouldn't mind getting me that information at a later date, I'd appreciate it. Yeah. And then one thing I did appreciate about the package that's put together for the residential improvements is clear detail in regards to requirements. I didn't explore some of these other ones here, but is that the same approach for things such as signage and new homes, just where it explains exactly what's required and potentially provides some examples of what would be accepted as approved?
Ms. Boulos?
I'm so sorry. Could you repeat the question?
For sure. I just wanted to note that I did appreciate the package that was put together in terms of residential requirements for applying for a permit. It provided examples of floor plans and what have you and the requirements to get that permit. I was just wondering if that's the same for things like signage as well. It's very clearly detailed and provides examples as to what's accepted and potentially what would not be accepted. Do we provide a guidance book for all of these types of permits?
Thank you for the question and for repeating it. In the land use bylaw specifically, there are examples of the different types of permits with images, as well as a list of what is permitted and what, like dimensions, how it needs to be installed, things like that. So it's directly in the land use bylaw. And when an applicant applies for that, if they do have those questions, they're more than welcome to ask us. But the different types of signage is in the land use bylaw, separated out by the type of signage as well, and it also provides the imagery for an example of the signage.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Two other questions, if I may?
Sure.
Perfect.
It's just Councillor McCook in the queue next, so if you want to go through all your questions, you can.
Councillor McCook, I can take a break if you want to. No? Okay. Thank you. I guess next question just relates to comparison to other municipalities. Do we have any insight as to what the average processing times are for similar municipalities or surrounding municipalities?
We do periodically look, and there's also a relationship with Build, who is advocacy for the development community. We don't have an update for 2025. In previous years, there's some application types that we perform better in, and some application types that we are slower in. I think one example is subdivision is faster than some of our comparable municipalities, and development, especially houses based on the volume that we receive, are slower than some of the regional comparators. I don't have exact numbers. We're also, at the moment, we're also one of the, several of those comparator municipalities already have electronic permitting in place, which provides some of that efficiency that we're seeking in the near future.
Perfect, and I think you led me right into this question, so I appreciate it.
Just 1 second, Councillor Natalbos. I know CEO Schwartz would like to give some
Yeah, just some
perspective.
subsequent information. I'm glad you mentioned e-permitting as well, Yasmin. Last year, we brought in a consultant to look at our planning and development processes, and we put together a roadmap. One of those things included e-permitting. We then spent several months and a lot of resources trying to develop an in-house solution to e-permitting, and it failed. So what that did was consume a lot of planning's time and set us back to the beginning. So we're now looking at an off-the-shelf solution. And the reason I'm saying this, and I want to talk about comparisons as well, the reason I'm saying this is we have the solutions, we have the fixes in front of us, we just have not had the opportunity to implement them. And Ms. Foley's been working really hard with planning and develop to get these things going. So we see the solutions coming down the pipe, we just have to get at them. The other comment I'll make about comparisons is it's very difficult to compare us with any other municipality. Because if you look at another municipality of, say, 25,000 people, which is around our population, and you look at the number of planning and development people we have, and we are understaffed. However, if you factor in the growth and the development on top of that, it becomes very difficult to find a comparison. Nobody is growing like we are, and we were understaffed to begin with. So this group is doing a remarkable job. They have the solution in front of them. We've just got to get to it. And e-permitting is going to help us significantly, and we're getting closer every day.
Thank you, CEO Schwartz. Councillor Natalbos, you have one more question?
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, it just ties more directly into the e-permitting. As you mentioned, obviously that's the route we want to go. How much more efficient do we feel bringing in e-permitting would assist in reducing some of these average processing times? Like, is it a significant reduction? And what does that kind of look like?
Ms. Raymond?
Yeah, thank you. I believe that it would be a significant reduction. I think lots of times technology can either be a time saver, it's maybe not a crutch, but it is definitely of benefit, especially where we've been having a lot of manual processes like Excel spreadsheets, very complicated Excel spreadsheets, and then also this inbox. And then we are needing to chase people down to get money, to be able to get that coming in. So actually we spend a lot of time doing that administrative piece. Whereas if we did have a system, it could automatically take that, it could understand what those requirements are and then be able to process them. In Edmonton right now, they're piloting a system where it can actually check the deck permit for you right now. It can tell you if you're within the confines of it, and it actually gives you the permit right away within, I think it does give it to you right away, or within a day for sure. They're looking at making it as easy as TurboTax to be able to do development permits. So I don't know if we'll quite get there, because I think there's some risk in terms of what the system does and then the liability it puts back onto the municipality for making sure that somebody has done the thing that they've submitted. But definitely it would make it a lot easier. You'd be saving quite a bit of time on the back end. We've been doing a lot of double entry and stuff like that too, so it would be a significant time saver.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natalenbos. Councillor McCook, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Also, thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Schwartz. I did want to highlight that we did undertake a full review of our planning and development department, and that has kind of led us down some of these paths. And at budget, we didn't add to the department, and so hopefully in the future we look at that when it comes budget time and look at how many people we have and what is required. And I hope people are ready to put some money behind that, as we know we are understaffed. A few questions. Given the average permit processing time and the province's indication of automatic approvals beyond some of these mandated timelines, what specific changes are we making or can we make to potentially safeguard against some of this provincial override and ensure compliance with some of these deadlines?
Thank you. Ms. Raymond?
I'll start to answer that question, and then if anybody else has more information, they can chime in. Auto yes is going to be very challenging for us with our current land use bylaw. Auto yes, we're just not set up for that. The bylaw is probably going to need a total overhaul and us to really look at it. Otherwise, we are going to create those unintended consequences if we try to adjust this piece over here and this piece over here, because it's all very much intertwined. Auto yes is going to require us to get better applications up front, so that we are able then to actually turn that around and say, sure, this is permitted use, you can have this by right away. But we're definitely not there with the bylaws that stands right now. It would be incredibly problematic for us if the province does move that way, which they're signaling they're going to be doing this fall. So currently right now there is consultation out with municipalities regarding this, but our bylaw, if we had a more traditional land use bylaw, it would be a bit easier, but we just need to be more clear on what the requirements are so that people understand exactly what they need to submit to be able to get to that permit and what those bars are very clearly, which I think would be helpful for everybody.
Thank you for that. I'll hop on the e-permitting piece. Should that move forward during budget or whatnot, do we know at all what kind of timeline it would be to implement something like that? Would it be a 6-month turnaround, a 1-year turnaround?
I'm very optimistic it's going to be a 6-month turnaround, but my friend from CAT is, we've been working on it and working on the requirements gathering, and I am pushing him quite as hard as he can be pushed on electronic permitting, understanding too that the municipality is also rolling out our ERP system, so FACT, which is our financial backbone, and there's only so many staff members to kind of go around to be able to undertake the work, but definitely as quickly as we can all move is the goal.
Thank you. And then with the province pushing some of this automatic yes and whatnot, do we know if there will be any options for pursuing grants or any provincial funding to kind of offset some of these costs that we could potentially move towards with e-permitting?
Not heard anything that there'll be grants available, but we'll keep you posted if we do.
Thank you. And then I guess, so we engage with build and developers, but how are we kind of collecting and incorporating feedback from either first-time residential applicants or residents, like some of the feedback that Councillor Natalenbos gave tonight on some of the permitting processes? Are we engaging some ongoing feedback? Do we track any information that's coming into us? Is anything coming in via our platforms or?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor McCook, right now we haven't had any capacity to be tracking that, although I know that is something as part of the service improvement that we want to be looking at how our services being not responded to is not quite the right word, but being received, and how people's customer experience is. So one of those really big pillars in the service review was customer experience, and that's something that we definitely want to improve upon. Also, Ms. Foley will be bringing back work on notification, signage, and the work that we've been doing there to improve notification processes. That's coming to council next week for public hearing, second and third reading, and then we will have some of those larger format signs that we've talked about and making real changes in the way that we are engaging people through the development process.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple more questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yep. Okay. With the dissolution of EMRB, do we know yet if there will still be any legislative frameworks or requirements for density that will be required to abide by?
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor McCook again, we have not heard right now what that outcome is going to look like. Right now, the different municipalities are engaging in work with a facilitator to talk about what the future of the post-EMRB world looks like, whether or not that's voluntary collaboration or how we're all going to work together. But right now, I don't envision that the province seems to have much appetite for increased regulations that will be imposed upon us.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And then, I know you've spoke to it a little bit, but as far as the signage goes, and I don't know if some of that will be coming back to us. I know we've talked about looking at the signage bylaw and whatnot, but is there any way that we can make it easier for signage approvals? Does that just go back to the e-permitting and being able to get through these approvals more quickly? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, I think there are a few things on signage that we can be looking at improvements for, but one of those is just that time and that effort, being able to do fulsome engagement with our business community. Signage has been a tricky issue for as long as I can remember in Beaumont, and our signage regulations used to be much stricter. And they've definitely, in conjunction with the business community, have changed over time. I know that they're not perfect. There are definitely conflicts between the different regulations that make it tricky for people to get the type of signage that they want and the type of signage that we're looking to see. Some of those might be backlit signage. We've been to a couple of appeals recently in our Saunterville area on signage where that seems to be particularly tricky. But I can let Yasmin speak more about signage. She's been through that, but that is something that is on our radar. Right now, what we're going to be doing is we are looking at what's working, what's not working, being able to prepare ourselves for our more comprehensive land use bylaw review that we want to do, and being able to set ourselves up for, what types of things we want to tackle first. So some of those are signage. We also know that home-based businesses are an issue. So that is something else too that we'll be looking at in conjunction with the business license bylaw with our friends in economic development. So those are things that need to wait until after the election. There just isn't time to be able to do that right now. It's not ideal to engage over the summertime, and then we're headed into an election. So it's stuff that will take place after in the next council term.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarity. I think, as you said, having that more comprehensive review will be important, and it will be timely with the dissolution of EMRB and potentially some legislative changes with the province. And I think that signage review will be very important. And as you said, the home-based business piece as well. Lots of different pieces coming together. And I think sometimes that's kind of what gets lost in some of this is the land use bylaw is a beast, and it is complicated and intricate, and it touches so many different pieces across the city. But it's important that we review it, and I look forward to going through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCook. Mayor Daniluk. You have
Chair.
the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. Two of my questions were already asked by my predecessor, so I won't fine-tune that anymore. But one question I do have for the electronic permitting, is that going to be mostly a made in Beaumont type of solution, or are we looking at getting a software package and customizing it to what we need, or we're going to make it our own right from the get-go? Is that sort of the direction we're going with electronic permitting? Just to clarify some of the comments that were made earlier.
Yeah, so for electronic permitting, we are going to be looking at an out-of-the-box solution. There are many different providers out there that do electronic permitting. Most of the municipalities within the region are also already using electronic permitting products. So a few tweaks here and there, but I understand that it's death by a thousand paper cuts to do customization on a piece of software. So we're looking at trying to tweak our processes as much as possible to match the out-of-box solution.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. Ms. Raymond, maybe you can just clarify for me. It was my recollection that we had in Budget 2025 approved some additional resources for planning and development. But I always want to defer to Councillor McCook too, because she has a good memory for these things. So if you could just clarify for me if there were additional resources allocated in Budget 2025 to planning and development. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, yes, there were additional resources that were allocated to the department, one of those being a safety codes officer, and the other one is the development compliance officer. Both of those are in progress here, with the development compliance officer actually expected to start next week, which is really exciting. And then we'll be providing a report back to council by the end of June with an update on where we're at with our enforcement measures. But yeah, so we haven't hired the safety codes officer. That one is very tricky to fill. So if you know of anybody, we're hiring. But yes.
Thank you. And to that point, I do see the city pushing out advertisements through social media and other places, professional networks. I think I heard you correctly, but just correct me if I'm wrong. The department has 6 FTEs, but you're running sometimes with as few as 3 on the ground. Is that correct?
Sorry, that's our development services section, specifically development planning, that does have those, and they are doing all of the development permits. They do the subdivision work. So Mr. Wong's team deals with long-range planning, so they're looking at our policy and our planning framework, growth planning. They look at area structure plans and dealing with those developer-driven applications or city-driven applications as a result of Innovation Business Park being one of those. And then this other team is, yeah, they deal with everything else, right, from all the stuff that happens on the ground to everything in between. So, yeah, just a lot of different vacancies. As you saw, Yasmin Sharp is new to her role, and she was an internal hire, so that does mean that we are backfilling for somebody else, which loses efficiencies when you're looking at running a business. So we're happy to support that, but we have had a lot of internal growth and movement really over the past 3 years, which every year we say we're going to get to the development season and we're going to be ready to go, and then something else happens. We go, okay, well, we pivot. And I think that that's just really thanks to the tenacity of this team, that the amount of work that they do with really how short-staffed they actually are on a given day, it's really phenomenal.
Yeah, if I could just pull a little more on that thread, part of what I'm hearing is that we could approve more resources for your department tomorrow, just like we could for the RCMP. That doesn't necessarily equate to being able to hire tomorrow, is what we seem to see across departments. So maybe you could just comment further on, is that a quirk of our current labor market?
Sure, I'll take a peek at that one. There is a shortage of planners, especially as you get to a certain level. What we've primarily attracted over the past while has been our junior entry-level planners. Require a lot of oversight and yeah, they require a lot to be able to build them and to mentor them into, and they take a significant amount of time before they're able to be fully independent. And our system has been calibrated to a more independent practitioner. And so there's not a lot of senior planners right now. We're starting to see a lot more retirements that are happening, and the average tenure of an employee is about 3 years right now in the labor market. So that doesn't really bode very well when you're looking at, you get somebody onboarded, their productivity, and then, it takes months before you're getting peak productivity out of them, and then they're there for a little bit and you start all over again.
Thank you. Many of us have been through that stage in our own careers where we've needed a lot of oversight. Some of us are still there. I'll just speak for myself. I just want to follow it a little further. So we see with other professions currently in our economy that we're sometimes losing them, kind of a brain drain to other markets for a variety of reasons. Is that affecting the planning profession too, or is this a matter of classic Canada, we don't have enough people to staff and fulfill all the different needs that we have currently?
I think there's a shortage of planners that are graduating. There's been more planning schools that have come up, but definitely the profession is probably short more people. But also the other aspect is we are in a region with 15 other, municipal employers. Edmonton is a big draw, I think, for municipal talent, I suppose, and we're really competing with that. I think that we're really lucky with the staff that we do acquire, and also private sector. I mean, we just lost probably a lot of our turnover lately has actually been to private practice. And unfortunately, one of the great things about planners is we're always looking to make a difference, and we're always looking to grow those skill sets, but they're going to different opportunities that exist, and there are a lot in Alberta.
Yeah, final comment or question from me. In some sectors, part of the hope currently is folks coming up from the US, especially in professional roles that are looking for a change of scenery. Is that on our radar for recruiting out of the US, or is that not possible in this realm?
Typically, we want people who are eligible to work in Canada more immediately, and that's our first priority for recruitment.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see anyone else queued up. Pardon me. So thank you. Do I have someone willing to move receipt? I'm getting waved off by the clerk, so we don't need to receive this by vote as information. This presentation was presented as information, so we will move from item 5 on to item 6.1 on our agenda. And these are, item 6 is just councillor inquiries. So I don't believe that we need to deal with them. Are there any new councillor inquiries this evening? No? Then with that, it brings us to item 7, closed session. Do I have someone willing to make a motion to move us into closed session at this time? Thank you, Mayor Daniluk.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll move the committee move into closed session at 5:43 p.m. pursuant to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, Sections 17, 24, and 25. Thank you.
Thank you. And can we open the voting, please? Ms. Nureddin. Thank you. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you for those of you who have joined us from home. And so I will call for adjournment at 6:11 p.m.